The fact that with the after the credit scene in this week's episode of Uncle from Another World has Fujimiya just be like, I want whatever poison that was used in that whole erotic scene because I need to poison Takafumi. And I'm like, the girls on this show, man, are surprisingly spicy. Now, when it came to the elf side of things, I can understand the disappointment after being led on as much as she was. But damn, Fujimiya has a bit of spice that I wasn't quite expecting, but leave it to this fresh 20-year-old who's like, I can drink, I can do whatever I want, bitch. I'm gonna make you mine. What a spicy-ass episode that left me rolling. Now, I do want to quickly mention, I'll have the full link in the pinned comment of this video. We will have a few week break for episode 5. Same thing that happened with Shikamori in last anime season. The production team behind this show, there's a lot of COVID stuff going around, so unfortunately they had to hold production, so therefore they have to wait for their people to get better and can come back to work. So it does suck, but this is a popular show. It's not going to affect its popularity in the slightest, so just want to make a quick mention here. Now, when it came to this girl's forwardness, I wasn't quite expecting that. And I think it's hilarious because when you look at Takafumi, he's been very critical on his uncle because a blind man can see that this girl, in every anime-like flashback that we see from Uncle's point of view, she wants him. She's very forward, and he, being the inexperienced 30, 40, 50, who the hell knows Uncle, because he says a lot of things but physically looks like he's in his 50s, but it's pretty hilarious to see the response. You know, he's very oblivious, and there's moments where you could just be like, okay, she got the wrong idea, no harm done, but when you literally are dragging her back to your room in the dead of night and you're wrapping your hand around her, you don't seem drunk in the slightest. It's understandable why you get a little pissed off that after getting to your room you get all weirdly animated and you're like, alright, I'm drunk, and just kind of go back to sleep. It's just hilarious to see that, but the idea that for Takafumi, this childhood friend dynamic, which I've never seen, I don't think, I mean, it's possible I'm forgetting something, but the idea of the ugly childhood friend who literally looks like the uncle but is actually the girl, and just the weird relationship they had back then. Takafumi very much had a childhood bully, and the fact that he can look at these memories so fondly, like, it's hilarious to see how similar the uncle and nephew really are, where you'll have the nephew criticizing the uncle for all of his missed obvious clues, but then in the middle of this episode, when a girl's sitting half naked on your bed wanting you to make a move, he's like, thank you, you're so kind, I'm gonna go get my memory erased now because we're just friends. Both of them are absolute morons when it comes to female interactions, and it is glorious to watch because you have someone who's pretty normal, pretty average, unfortunately goes to buy coffee beans or gets his memory erased when there's a moment for him to strike, and then you have an uncle with all these abilities, and even after transferring to, you know, the original world, his anti-form that he takes on very much looks like someone who should be his love interest. This show is a riot, man. The picture scene when she sends him a birthday gift, it was like a picture from her in middle school with the water splashed on her. He immediately just shuts it down and be like, okay, I'll get in trouble and go to jail for this. I need to delete this. And I love the uncle's response being like, wait, you can get, you know, arrested for this shit? And you can just tell how fearful he is of internet culture just in that very quick moment. But it's actually a pretty great character building episode, all things considered, because now that the cat's kind of out of the bag for her, just to see how she responds to the absurdity. Like, in the middle of spilling the coffee, she ends up getting frozen. And I mean, this dude literally popping up a barrier and almost breaking the skull of this woman who very much likes him, to freezing potential love interest for his nephew here, and then immediately was about to burn her to Satan's doorstep. This show has an absolute blast with the comedy, and I'm really glad to see that it's not a one-trick wonder either. It's not simply just like, oh, we're gonna parody Isekai, or we're gonna parody Sega, or make a lot of Sega references, right? There's actually telling a pretty wholesome, like, slice-of-life story with this nephew-uncle, childhood friend, potential love interest dynamic going on. And I'm really enjoying how they're having fun showing the uncle's previous life there, which usually would be the main star attraction of a show like this, but as we see, it's basically like watching an anime for these characters, as he basically thinks everything is very simple and boring as he goes plays his Sega games. But it's great to see that they're really taking their time with building up the cast dynamic, because what started off as pretty reluctant with a nephew going to visit his uncle, not really having any connection, to kind of feeling like they're like the unofficial best bros at this point, even if they both kind of criticize each other. the uncle a little less than Takafumi, given that he just really wants to bring this man up, but it's great to see the ignorance and just the blissful ignorance, I guess is what I should say, of just what's going on. And for an episode that shows a shower scene, sending a photo that was meant to be risky, even if it wasn't the worst thing ever, to just the whole idea of taking a woman back to your room after you've been shit-faced drunk, apparently. I mean, this show has a lot going on for it, and I'm absolutely loving what they're able to do, both with kind of isekai parodies, both with a slice of life that kind of feels fun to follow, where, you know, if you get your uncle shit-faced drunk after one sour beverage there, you're flying high in the sky, and honestly, to see all the lights flicker on as the dogs are barking, it was a blast to follow, man. And while yes, it does suck that we will have a few week break for episode 5, it's one of those shows that I'm just so excited to see what they're gonna pull. The one thing I'm actually interested in is, given that Netflix, when it comes to worldwide simulcasts, are 2 weeks behind the official Japanese broadcast. With there being a couple week delay, I'm curious to see if Netflix will then, at that point, be caught up enough that they can maybe, you know, try to be normal for once. They won't do it, I know, it's wishful thinking, but one would hope that they would take the time of that delay and say, hey, even if the episodes aren't on their dashboards just yet, maybe they could catch up with normal simulcasts, get up to 2021, 2022, you know, where we've been at for many years with so many different services. It still annoys me that, you know, they'll release subtitles in select countries same day, but then they'll make North Americans wait, God knows, 2-3 weeks sometimes. It's just insane to see, but it's a little annoying, just, you know, for such a popular show. It'd be interesting to see just how much more popular the show actually would be if people didn't have to wait a couple of weeks. But anyway, I digressed. This was a great episode. It really was. I'd say, even though it wasn't quite the funniest episode for me, that's not saying anything like negatively, because this show's been a riot since the first episode. I will say, though, this was one of my favorite episodes that we've seen out of the 4, and I think given what we've now seen in terms of the more simpler moments with all the different character interactions, it says to me that this show will just get better, rather than maybe having a bit of a rocky kind of climb progression and being like, okay, I kind of like this character, but do we really need to see the who once was the ugly friend, now turned love interest? No, like, I like all the characters they've shown us up to this point, and I like the little quirks, whether it's the Sega gamer or the I'm gonna go buy things on sale and completely ignore the sexual things that are going on around me, to just the girl who's trying her hardest. And I mean, if she's ever needed a best friend, it's the elf that we've been following, as they would definitely relate to the bullshit that they've had to deal with when it comes to this family. But I'll pass the torch over to you. What did you think of this week's episode of Uncle from Another World? I'm loving the characters across the board, and I'm loving how it's not just one type of comedy. There's quite a few elements kind of surrounded this entire package of this slice of life. And I mean, I just see a lot of people think it would just be kind of like an isekai parody without much more going on, but it really does feel like it has a story building in terms of this kind of family dynamic, and I'm loving the comedy to the little bits of drama that they've introduced. But thoughts down below, leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you're new around here. Till next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.